Today I'm here with my good friend Brandon West. He is such an amazing person, has done so many things, and we're close friends, and he's close friends with my husband too. So I feel honored that I get to introduce you to people and show how incredible you are. You really are. He's the happiest person you've ever met, despite some of the really difficult things you've been through. He's built up successful businesses. In fact, we were on the phone yesterday or 2 days ago talking about this, and you took a company from like 5 or 6 million to like 600,
Yeah.
$600 million. So he's done all those cool things. Yeah. But the most important thing that you need to know about Brandon is that he was extremely popular in high school. All those other pathetic things don't matter. He was extremely popular in high school. Actually, this reminds me of something we talked about before. Will you remind me of the story you were doing? You saw someone running really fast and they'd beaten a record or something, and you wanted to know how to. Will you tell me that?
Yeah. So I'm in sixth grade, and you got to run around the track twice. And my parents just went through a divorce, and I'm just sitting here kind of like, ugh. And my older brother, who's 9 years older than me, his friend broke this record, and I was like, I want to beat it. So then I just asked him, like, how fast do I have to go? And he tells me, I'm like, how many times one? And I just became kind of this obsessed with like winning, and so I ended up beating it. And I thought it was cool, and then
Wait, you were in sixth grade and you beat a record of like.
no, it was a sixth grade record.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then all of a sudden I did something cool in junior high and high school, and so I became popular. Dated prom queen. Hi.
That's all that matters, guys. That's literally all that
I mean, come
matters.
on.
We all peaked in high school.
Yeah, definitely.
So awesome. Okay, so how I want to know like kind of how you reached your success. Like what happened in your life that you were able to grow these successful companies?
Well, I would say success it's determined in many different ways, and part of it, which is it's just within ourselves. So you can be a successful mom, a successful brother or sister.
So glad you said that.
And it's not about money or fame
Yeah.
or fortune or any of these things. And that for me is like success and love. Right now there's so much turmoil in the world, and people do what they're really good at, which is like people that are nurturers, they nurture.
Yeah.
People that are givers give. People that are like, let's go fix it afterwards. They go build and fix. And so
gosh.
I look at like success as like who we are, knowing ourselves. That's what success is. And it's just determined upon ourselves.
Okay, I was not expecting that answer at all. I'm not kidding. And I'm so glad I even have chills like that you said that, because I got to tell you, as a stay-at-home mom, especially, there's not a lot of praise in this
Yeah.
job at all. It's so thankless, and it is the best job ever.
Can I say something about
Yeah.
that? So think about who's a famous athlete that you know.
Michael Jordan
Okay, Michael Jordan.
was a famous athlete.
Take Michael Jordan, any athlete, and they go to practice. They do their stuff, and then they have their 82 games throughout the year, and then playoffs, and then they have the summers off. How often do you have off as being a mother? Never. But yet they're considered professionals.
Yeah.
They're at the top of their sport. Why? Just because other people get to see everything they're doing.
Yeah.
But you do your job more than they do theirs.
Thank you.
So you're like a pro mom.
Who thinks? Like, no one says this. What the heck?
It's true.
I was not expecting this answer at all. Thank you. Like, this is like for me now. Wow. I'm not kidding. Like, in fact, I used to run, medical clinics and medical spas years ago.
Yeah.
And when I had kids, I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And I remember I ran into some old employees, and they're like, "So are you working now?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, in a totally different way, being a mom." And they're like, "No, I mean like a real job."
Aww.
Someone saying that to me, and I I
Where are they?
I know that. He actually has a black belt. I forgot to mention that.
It's right here.
Brandon actually has a legit black
Yeah.
belt. But no, thank you so much for saying
Yeah.
that. I know every woman right now that's watching is probably like, wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, you need to hear that, Wow, thank you. I was not expecting that at all. Okay, so what would you tell someone who's, kind of downtrodden and feeling sad about life and maybe a downward spiral? Like, you've been through some serious stuff. Like, how do you get out of that?
Yeah. You know what? I think number one is just like learning to love yourself, and then asking for help as well too. And I think there's a cool Dr. Ruth, sweet Dr. Ruth, if you remember back in the day. She's like 94 years old. Don't ask me how I know that, but I do. I know. Forget about it. But she said, when people say, "I love you," they're really saying, "I love me when I'm around you. I feel safe. I feel secure. I feel strong. I feel needed. I feel wanted. I feel heard. I feel seen." And so they're saying, I love myself around you. So they're saying, "I love you but really they're saying, I love me. And so when people connect and make these connections, because it's going to go like this. And when you start feeling, I don't love myself around this person, because why? Because they're doing bad things, or they're, being rude to other people, and they're making me involved to it, or whatever it might be. These little things
to you.
right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even just the way they are. So you got to like let certain people go and lift certain people up, and surround yourself around. If you take the top 5 people you associate with, you're basically the same person.
Are these principles you've applied in growing a business as large as you grew it?
Yeah, it's and I think I'm gonna go from the business side of it. I have 2 rules that this is actually funny you said this. So in our home, going back to what we were just talking about, my kids, I remember being a young father, and I'd be like, hey kids, go brush your teeth. Hey kids. Hey.
Weird. My kids always obey the first.
Yeah, right. Which is funny you said that. So my 2 rules in the house, which is L1, so listen the first time. And the second rule is TTT, which is tell the truth. Only 2 rules in the whole house ever growing up.
Wow.
Even now. And so if you listen the first time, the promises from me and their mom was, if you listen the first time, you will never get in trouble with me or her.
Wow.
And if you tell the truth, you will never get in trouble with me or her. Wow. And there's consequences, but it's like, hey kids. And so parenting to me is about parents. That's why it's called parenting.
Yeah.
And so kids are watching TV, and you're like, hey kids, go brush your teeth. They're not even listening to you. But when you look at them and you go, hey, shh, they're like, okay. Or can I wait till a commercial? Fine.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, once I implemented these 2 things, I started loving myself. And I was like, now I love myself as a parent. Because I didn't love...
I told you 5 times.
Right. And I didn't love myself. I didn't like the way I felt about me when I was yelling or being frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
And for the TTT, which is tell the truth, you got to know that one day your kids could come to you, which goes back to all your other podcasts that you're doing, which nice job. I mean, amazing people on these podcasts, and just like, I watch them, I'm like crying. But it's neat because these people have gone through so much stuff. And as a parent, you got to be ready for the time when, even as a friend, someone to come up and be like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm addicted to drugs. I'm dropping out of school. I am like, whatever their thing is, they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And you got to be like, and you have your opinion. You want to get crazy, and you're like, come here. Wrap your arms around and be like, I love you. Let's fix it. Or let me help you. Yeah. Let's get through this together. And then what they feel, all these people that you've been interviewing that have had these people in their lives, and you've had family in your life in those situations, and you're like, now they're like, okay, I love myself around Christina. I love myself around Brandon, or around my mom or uncle or whoever it might be. And so that's how it ties in. So if you take those simple principles and add them to business, or add them to your family, or add them to your neighborhood, or whatever it might be, those principles are the same thing all over.
Loving people, genuinely loving
Yeah, there's a cool book. It's called The Likability Factor, and it talks about say you're interviewing for a company. And they said you have 2 people. You have someone with a high likability and a high capability. Now, the high likability person may have maybe mid-range capability, but the person with a high capability has very low likability. So imagine these 2 people walking through an office, okay? The guy with the high likability, he's like, hey, what's up? And he's high-fiving people and be like, nice job on that. Oh my gosh, good job. And he's just energizing the room. Yeah. And say there's 25 employees, all 25 people, their work goes up because they are like, I love the way I feel around that person. Wow. And you take the person with high capability. Now that one individual, they're going to kick some butt, right? But when they walk around the office, they're like, oh, so-and-so's coming, come on. Shh. Yeah. And they're like this, and they're saying, I don't like the way I feel when I'm around him or her. And so it changes. So that same principle is, I love me when I'm around you. And so you bring on these people with high likability factor. And if you want to increase your likability factor, love yourself. And if you think about going back to like, even take the principles of God. And his whole thing is, listen the first time, which is be obedient.
Yeah, right away.
Tell the truth. Like, obey the commandments. Like, yeah. And if you screw up, tell the truth.
Yeah.
If you do something wrong, tell the truth. If you have a drug addiction problem, you have alcohol problem, you have whatever your thing is, tell the truth. Yeah. And he's going to say, you know what? I promise you will not get in trouble with me, which is why I laid out the plan to help us to come back. And he's like, we got to fix it, and we will.
Yeah.
But that's how much I love you.
I've never thought of it that way. That is so beautiful. That's so true.
It's pretty
You know
fun.
what? Like this, that right there, I think you just explained why you're able to grow a company so much because you have the high likability. I just wish everyone could get to know Brandon. Like, seriously, you're so
Hey.
fun and happy. I am serious. You're always happy and energetic and you're so complimentary to everyone and you're just such a great person. But, that reminded me, in the book Made to Stick, it talks about, have you read that one?
Yeah.
It's so good. But it talks about doctors who have good bedside manner are much less likely to be sued for malpractice,
Yeah.
even compared to better doctors, because they have good bedside manner.
Yeah.
People like them,
Yeah.
so they don't want to sue you because they really
Right.
like you, and they're like, yeah, you screwed up,
Yeah.
or whatever. But yeah, that works in every parenting,
Yeah.
businesses. Like, wow, Brandon's been through a lot, and and a side note too, you talked about like parenting,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about you is you put so much value on parenting, and I know that
Yeah.
even though your kids are raised, because
Yeah.
within the first 5 minutes of meeting you, you were talking about, I have a daughter that's in Italy serving mission right now. My son just got home. He says, hey, will you go
Yeah.
follow him on his page? And
Yeah.
then, and talking about your kids, and you're
Yeah.
just like you obviously value parenting,
Yeah.
value your children a lot,
Yeah.
and it just says a lot about you.
No, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so Brandon, is it okay if I bring up this story that just happened to you?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to show some pictures to you. So
Oh
buckle
gosh,
up,
it's
everyone.
bad.
This was a couple months ago. Was it 2 months ago?
It was in August, like 2.5.
2.5. I
Yeah.
cannot believe that. Like you're
Crazy.
here and
Yeah.
functioning normal. You look normal. I know
Thank
you
you.
said that you've had some
I'm
aftermath.
trying to be normal.
You look normal, I promise. But anyway, why don't you tell us what happened a couple
Okay.
months ago?
So I have a small investment in a company, and they do like races. It's called Race Ready, and they dropped off my dirt bike and souped it up and all these things. And so I'm just getting I'm like wearing shorts and a t-shirt and flip flops, I think. And I'm like, I just want to see this thing and feel the pep. And I'm coming out of my garage, and the side of it just hit a little, like clipped it, which turned the wheel, and it made me what they call whiskey throttling, which makes you just go like this. And the bike hit a little retainer wall and shot straight up in the air, and I fell back, and it landed right on my face. And
How much does this bike weigh?
about 400 pounds, maybe. No, well, the bike's probably maybe a couple. It's enough to do damage, and especially at the speed it was coming up top. And so I can should I look on that one here? So I ended up with stitches here, gash in there, stitches here. My whole under eyelid, my tear ducts are gone. Punctured my lung, because it just crushed on me. And it was funny. My neighbor saw it, and he was like, Brandon just crashed in his front. I was going like 5 miles an hour. And then, and it was funny because they're like, he's laughing. And then he goes 2 minutes later, he's like, looking outside. He's like, shoot, I might have to go help him. I was out. Oh, yeah. Concussion, skull fracture, it was pretty bad. So
The reason why I brought that up
Yeah.
is because you've chosen to be such a positive person.
Yeah.
And it seems like from what we talked about before that that became an opportunity for you to develop better relationships,
Yeah.
for you to, I guess, in my opinion, see God's hand in your life a little bit. Do you mind telling me a little bit about any good that came from that?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was hard because you're dealing with concussion and dealing with all these things, and you look in the mirror and you're like this is my moneymaker right here. So I'm like, oh, this is not good. And there's just the whole side of my face is just droopy and bloody and stitches, and I'm like, and my eye was so bad, and I just thought it was never gonna heal, and it was, I'll tell you, like when it's talking about like loving yourself, I was like, I'm screwed. Like I'm gonna have to just do some different thing in business and all this stuff, because I'm like, I can't be
Like
walking
be
around.
behind a computer.
Yeah, and because I'm like, I can't be walking around being like, Brandon, hey. So I'm like, I'll be like, hi.
What have you learned from that accident, or what good came out of that? And I guess the reason why I'm asking is sometimes I've noticed for myself that you have to kind of go through something hard in order to recognize, in my opinion, God's hand in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking that, by the way. And it's been something for me. Sorry. After that accident, like I couldn't even look at people in the eyes. I couldn't communicate very good. Like I had to receive help from people that I was not expecting, that I've helped in the past. I felt a little weak and ashamed, and nothing negative I did at the time, but just like and you just beat up.
Yeah.
And whether it's from like going back to all the things that from the viewers like that have been through trauma and tragedy and all these horrible things, you learn to accept love.
Yeah.
And if you can love yourself, you can learn to accept it from others. And that's why I also think too is it's important to extend our base. I talked about the top 5 people. That's who we really are, but we also should have a little bit bigger circle to like help us to be able to be in a position to receive that love.
You know what's really cool too is, well, because you've known my husband for a
Yeah.
long time.
Oh yeah, stud.
Yeah, he is a stud. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think he's amazing. We could do a whole podcast on that. But anyway, but you guys hadn't seen each other for a while,
Yeah.
and when you were kind of down recovering, I think you had said that was when
Yeah.
you had the feeling to reach out to him.
Yeah. Actually, it's because all of a sudden, a lot of work stuff started just changing a lot.
Yeah.
And his name came in my head, and here I am, like concussed out and all these things, and like, and I started increasing my spirituality and just trying to like find a new version of who I was. And his name came in like so many times, and finally, like I'm even late at night, and I looked at my phone. I'm like, I can't text him this late. So I took a screenshot. I like wrote his name. I put his name in my text and then screenshot it. And then finally I was in my garage and thought it again. I just reached out, and it was so great because I saw him and I was like, I don't even know why I'm like here, but he's like, bro, and he gives me a big hug, and he's just so humble and so sweet and so kind. And just being around him like helped me so much because I realized like I'm not the only one that has been through some stuff too.
Yeah.
And it was like, he's kind of the golden boy down here, but I like to hear him express his awesome experiences in his life too, and be like, not everything's perfect. It doesn't have to be.
No. And that the fact that you went through that,
Yeah.
like it's like you were just saying when we were off camera a second
Yeah.
ago too, that like you can't appreciate the good until you go through something so hard,
Yeah.
and sometimes it takes us being brought to our knees to really like see who loves us and who's there for us, and my husband does love you. He absolutely loves you. We all do.
He's such a good dude.
How could you not?
I mean, come on. I was popular in high school.
That's why.
I know,
That is
that's
literally
why.
the reason why. Everything else I don't care about. Anyway, but there's something, if you don't mind talking about
Yeah.
that you've been through that's really, really difficult. And I know it's personal, and I'd asked before if it's
Yeah.
okay if we talk about it.
Sure.
That I think people who have gone through or are going through it
Yeah.
probably need to hear it. If you're okay with
Yeah.
kind of sharing
For sure.
what you've gone through.
So a few years ago, my little brother, he passed away from fentanyl, and it was weird because like great kid, super happy all the times, but he just had this addiction, and what the addiction wasn't fentanyl; it was laced with that, and just I think once you start going down this path, and what I've learned from like addictions, what doesn't matter what the substance is, usually the problem isn't the drug or the alcohol or whatever it is. The problem is the lack of coping mechanisms or coping skills that we need. And because we're having these things, so he was fine until all of a sudden, like getting a ski accident, hit his head, and then all of a sudden one problem after the next, and the kid was going to go on a mission, and he talked about all these things, and then all of a sudden just like everything just changed. And I think a lot of people have seen that experience too, or
Oh yeah.
I mean, for me to think I'm sitting right here, have had such awesome experiences since my accident. I'm so lucky and so blessed, and I don't think a lot of people get out of that because it's easy to turn to substances and turn to all these other things, and it's made me aware now to be like, so I had that happen with my brother. Horrible. I mean, he's texting me 15 minutes later, gone. And I've watched my parents grieve. And the thing is when someone passes, it's not about your loss for them. It's like, sorry. It's like watching my parents suffer and like become zombies. Just like, I'm like, hi.
Surviving.
Yeah, they're just surviving. And I'm like, just watching everyone just change, like the whole family, the whole family changed. And I mean, we're fine now, but it took a minute. because you just don't know how to deal with that stuff. And so I come back, and then one of my really good friends committed suicide. And so all of a sudden I'm trying to deal with my brother and then also my friend. And I allowed some of his family to come stay at my house for a little while because I had the empathy from my brother. And if that would have never happened, I would have never been able to help out my friend's family. And just watching that experience take place is like it's helped me to be more open minded, to expand out my circle, like I talked about earlier, because a lot of times we sit here and we talk about Utah, or especially Utah County, being in this little bubble. And if we stay there all the time, what about these people in the outskirts that are like,
Right.
hey, what about me? What about me?
Yeah.
And
Or people inside who are being quiet about
right.
it. Yeah.
And so that's what's been difficult is it's the people that, yeah, that don't talk. And now you can reach out and be like, hey, and be the person with the high likability factor and say, hey, how are you, bud? I see you. I recognize you. Because
Yeah.
when we do those things, all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I like this person.
And you
Because I
feel
feel seen. I
loved.
feel loved. I feel
Yeah.
heard. I feel, yeah,
You're so good at that. And despite all these hard things that you've been through too, like,
thank you.
I was just having this conversation the other night because, my brother was addicted to drugs and he
Yeah.
lived on the streets and he's been clean for, well, actually in a couple of days, it'll be 11 years now
Holy cow. Good
from
for,
heroin and
yeah.
meth. It's
Oh,
like, you just
geez.
don't get
Yeah.
clean from that,
Yeah.
And, we were having this conversation with friends the other night. He was that person that goes up to you at the gas station that says,
Yeah.
"Oh, my car's out of gas,"
Oh,
or
yeah.
"Hey, do you have any change to spare?" And
All
you're
right.
kind of like nervous, like I don't, or I don't carry cash anymore, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, oh, you should always give them money. I'm certainly not saying that. I think you got to listen to whatever you feel, but always know that that's someone's brother.
Yeah.
Technically, it's all of our brother.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that's someone's brother, and that family is probably suffering, and the potential that that person has.
Yeah.
Everyone has potential, and everyone has value, and you're so good at bringing that out in
Thank you.
people. So one last question I want to
Yeah.
ask is like, how do we become that person? Like, were you just born with this personality, or is there hope for everyone who maybe feels like, well, I don't have the high likability? How do you do that? How do you
Yeah.
become that?
I think part of it is finding your core, like your core of who you are. And if it's okay, like if you're shy and you're like, hey, I'm not that person,
Yeah.
that's okay. And be like,
Yeah.
but it goes back to like when I said with all the turmoil in the world right now, people, if you're like my sister, she's so good at like giving her time. She's like, my mom needs some help. She has scoliosis, just had a surgery. She's like, I'm going to mom's house today and I'm going to do. And so if your things are to serve or to love, and some people, like to the point when you said before, off camera, about all those people that have come to your home out of nowhere, they're like, I know how to show up.
Yeah.
I know how to listen. I know how to like connect. And I think find out what your core is of what you're really good at. And even if it's like, I can send,
Organizing.
yeah, yeah,
I can come organize. I'll be quiet in a corner, but I'll
yeah,
organize. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And just find out what that is. And I think, and again, how often do you do those things on a regular basis? Which is
A lot of people.
we become professional. I'm a good parent.
Yeah.
Well, you're a professional at being parents.
That you said that.
You're the Michael Jordan of parenting.
I don't know about that, but honestly, I'm so glad you just brought it full circle and you brought that back up because
Yeah,
we looked at some analytics and the vast majority of people watching are women,
yeah.
and
Shout out to the women of the world.
shout out to the women. I'm serious, but everyone, and
Yeah.
I have so many good men in my life. I have so many good men. I'm one of the blessed people who I don't hate men.
Yeah.
I don't hate men because I have great brothers. I have a
Yeah.
great dad. I have an excellent
Yeah.
husband. Like they're all so awesome, but women need to hear that, especially when you're doing a thankless
Yeah.
job. We don't have the praise
Yeah.
from the world. We don't have people telling us like, "Go be a boss, babe." I'm like, well, I got my
Yeah.
baby to eat peas this morning. I got.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Like even my kid's mother, an amazing woman, and I, as much as I like pretend like I'm a cool parent, I'm like, no, it was her. I came up with things that worked for me, so I didn't freak out. But yeah, I give the credit to her because she's the foundation of that core of our three kids, and she's the one that built that whole thing up. And to me, I'm like, I would never go head to head against her with being a good parent.
That's so kind of you to say. You're an incredible person, and I hope we can kind of learn to be more like you in a lot of ways because
Thank you.
you're so kind, and I've seen you interact with other people, and I feel like that's why people want to be around you. If we had more of that in the world, we wouldn't have so many problems. So thank you so much for being here and
Absolutely.
sharing some
Thank you for
vulnerable
having me.
stories. You're welcome.
Okay.